The sound of heavy boots echoed through the dark corridors of Starbase 7. Zara's blue skin shimmered in the dim emergency lights as she ran, her heart pounding against her chest. The voices behind her grew louder. "Stop the blue skin. Don't let her escape." Zara ducked into a narrow maintenance tunnel, her slim body easily sliding through spaces where her pursuers couldn't follow. Her white hair, tied in a messy braid, caught on a loose wire, making her wince. But she couldn't stop. She wouldn't let them catch her. Not again. 3 days ago, she had been kicked out of the Centauri system. Before that, it was the Proxima colonies. And before that, the Saturn outposts. Every system, every station, every planet. As soon as they saw her blue skin, they knew what she was, and they wanted her gone. The maintenance tunnel opened into a busy cargo bay. Zora pulled her hood up quickly, trying to hide her face. Workers moved boxes and crates, preparing ships for their next jumps. The air smelled like engine fuel and metal. She needed to find a way out, any way out. A group of security officers burst into the cargo bay. Their black uniforms stood out against the gray walls. The blue skin came this way. Search every corner. Zara's hands shook as she tried to look normal, walking between the tall stacks of cargo containers. A worker passed by, and she turned her face away. Just a few more steps to the next row of ships. "Hey, you there, stop." She ran. Her worn boots slipped on the metal floor as she sprinted between ships of all sizes. Some were small personal vehicles, others were massive cargo haulers. She just needed one that was leaving soon, one that might hide her. A security officer appeared in front of her. Zara spun around, but 2 more blocked that path. They had cornered her between a wall and a large red cargo ship. "Please," Zara said, raising her hands. "I'm not hurting anyone. I just want to live in peace." "Your kind isn't welcome here," the lead officer said, reaching for his stun weapon. "The ban is clear. No blue skins in any civilized system." Zora looked up at the cargo ship beside her. Its loading ramp was down, and no one seemed to be around. It was probably her only chance. "Don't even think about it," the officer warned. Zora thought about it. She ran straight at the officers, making them raise their weapons. But at the last second, she dropped and slid between their legs. Before they could turn, she was already running up the ship's ramp. Inside, the cargo hold was dark and packed with containers. Zara squeezed herself into a narrow space between 2 large boxes, trying to slow her breathing. Her whole body trembled. Heavy boots stomped up the ramp. Flashlight beams swept through the cargo hold. "Search everything. She has to be here somewhere." Zora pressed herself deeper into the shadows. She could hear them moving boxes, getting closer to her hiding spot. Sweat rolled down her blue skin despite the cold air. Then a new voice called from outside. "What's going on here?" "This is my ship." "Sorry, Captain," one of the officers said. "We're searching for a fugitive. A blue skin was seen entering your vessel." "A blue skin? Here?" The captain sounded surprised. "Well, search all you want, but make it quick. I'm taking off in 10 minutes, and I won't delay my schedule for your wild chase." The officers searched for what felt like hours to Zora, but they couldn't find her in the cramped space. Finally, they gave up and left the ship. Soon after, Zara felt the ship rumble to life. The engines roared, and the floor vibrated beneath her. They were taking off. She had no idea where this ship was going, but anywhere was better than here. As the ship broke through the station's atmosphere, Zara finally allowed herself to breathe. She was safe, at least for now. But she knew this peace wouldn't last. Sooner or later, someone would find her. They always did. What she didn't know was that this ship and its human captain would change everything. But that part of the story was just beginning. Captain James Chen didn't like surprises on his cargo runs. 20 years of space hauling had taught him that surprises usually meant trouble. But nothing in those 20 years had prepared him for finding a blue-skinned alien hiding behind his cargo of medical supplies. He'd gone to check the temperature controls in the cargo hold after his ship, the Star Wanderer, entered hyperspace. The hold was dimly lit, filled with the soft hum of the cooling systems. That's when he heard it, a quiet sneeze from behind the medical containers. James pulled out his flashlight, its beam cutting through the shadows. "Whoever's there, come out slowly. This is my ship, and I don't like stowaways." At first, nothing moved. Then a figure emerged from between two large containers. James's breath caught in his throat. Her skin was the color of Earth's oceans, her white hair glowing softly in the flashlight beam. The blue skin, the most feared and banned species in known space. "Please," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I won't cause any trouble. I just needed to escape." James had heard all the stories about blue skins, how they could manipulate minds, how they had caused the collapse of the Rigel system, how they were banned from every civilized planet. But looking at her now, trembling and exhausted, she didn't look dangerous at all. "When's the last time you ate?" he found himself asking. The question seemed to surprise her. 3, maybe 4 days ago. James sighed. 20 years of avoiding trouble. And now here he was, about to break every regulation in the book. "Stay here. I'll be back." He returned with a thermal blanket and a container of hot soup from his personal stores. The blue skin stared at him like he'd grown a second head. "Why?" she asked, not touching the food. "Why aren't you calling the authorities?" "Because," James said, sitting down on a nearby crate, "my grandmother taught me to judge people by their actions, not their reputation. So far, all you've done is hide and look hungry. That's not enough reason to turn you in." He pushed the soup toward her. "I'm James. What's your name?" "Zara," she said, finally taking the soup. Her hands shook as she ate. "Well, Zara, we've got about 3 days until we reach the Europa colony. Want to tell me why half the galaxy is so afraid of you?" Before she could answer, the ship's emergency alarm blared to life. Red lights flashed throughout the cargo hold. "Warning. Unauthorized vessel AP Pro ACHang. Skianatang DGTCTED." James jumped to his feet. "Space police. They must have tagged my ship back at the station." He looked at Zara, who had gone pale. "Stay here." He rushed to the bridge, sliding into the pilot's seat. The police vessel was smaller but faster than his cargo ship. Their faces appeared on his communication screen. "Captain Chen," the lead officer said, "our scans detect an unusual life form aboard your vessel. By order of the Galactic Council, you are required to stop for inspection." James felt sweat on his forehead. One word from him, and all his problems would be over. He'd be rewarded for turning in a blue skin. His shipping company would probably give him a bonus. But then he remembered Zora's face when he gave her the soup. The surprise that someone would show her kindness. "Officers," he said, trying to sound confused. "Your scans must be malfunctioning. I'm running medical supplies to Europa. Nothing unusual here except some new experimental medicines. They might be throwing off your readings." The officer frowned. "Medical supplies? Let me check your manifest." James held his breath. He had friends in the medical supply business who owed him favors. His manifest would check out perfectly. After a tense minute, the officer spoke again. "Everything appears in order, Captain Chen. But if you do encounter any unusual situations, remember that harboring a blue skin is punishable by life imprisonment." "Understood, officers. Safe travels." The police ship finally turned away, but James waited until they were completely out of scanner range before returning to the cargo hold. He found Zora exactly where he'd left her, but something was different. The air around her seemed to shimmer slightly, and the nearby medical containers were floating a few inches off the ground. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, and everything settled back down. "When I'm scared, sometimes I can't control it completely." James stared at the containers, then at her. "I think," he said slowly, "it's time you told me the real story about your people, and why everyone's so wrong about you." Zara looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. You showed me kindness when no one else would. You deserve the truth. But, she glanced around nervously, you might want to sit down. It's a long story, and it starts with what really happened in the Rigel system. As James sat down on a nearby crate, he couldn't help but smile. His grandmother would be proud. Sometimes, the biggest surprises turned out to be the best ones. But neither of them noticed the small blinking light on one of the medical containers. Someone else was very interested in this conversation, and they were listening to every word. The Star Wanderer's engine room hummed with a rhythm that only worried spacers could hear. And right now, that rhythm was off. The Rigel incident wasn't what everyone thinks, Zara said, sitting cross-legged on a maintenance platform. Below her, Captain James Chen was elbow-deep in engine parts, trying to fix whatever was making that wrong sound. My people never attacked anyone. James wiped sweat from his forehead, leaving a streak of engine grease. The official records say your species caused a massive explosion that destroyed half the system. Because that's what they wanted everyone to believe. Zara's voice grew quiet. The truth is, we tried to save them. A warning light flashed on the engine control panel. James cursed under his breath. The temperature was rising too fast. The Rigel system's sun was dying, Zara continued. Our scientists discovered it first. We tried to warn them, but the Rigel government didn't want to cause panic. They ignored us. The engine's rhythm grew worse. Steam hissed from a cracked pipe above James's head. So what did your people do? James asked, trying to distract himself from the growing problem. He needed to reach the emergency shutdown valve, but it was behind a wall of scorching hot pipes. We did what we were made to do, what we were born to do. Zara stood up, her blue skin starting to shimmer with that strange energy James had seen before. We tried to heal it. Suddenly, the cracked pipe burst. Scalding steam filled the engine room. James fell backward, shielding his face. But the burning pain never came. He opened his eyes to see the steam frozen in midair, swirling in beautiful patterns around them. Zara stood with her arms raised, her entire body glowing with blue energy. The steam slowly moved away, condensing back into water that flowed harmlessly into a nearby drain. You can control energy, James whispered. We don't control it. Zara moved her hands, and the dangerous heat from the engines began to disperse. We communicate with it, guide it, help it flow where it needs to go. Her eyes glowed slightly. Like now. The engine's wrong rhythm suddenly smoothed out. James checked the control panel. The temperature was dropping back to normal levels. You fixed it, he said in amazement. But how? The energy was stuck, building up in the wrong places. I just helped it find its proper path again. Zara swayed slightly, and James rushed to catch her before she fell. Are you okay? Using our abilities takes strength, she explained, leaning on him, especially when we're alone. My people were meant to work together, combining our powers. That's how we tried to save Rigel's son. What went wrong? Before Zara could answer, the ship's computer crackled to life. ALERT. Unauthorized data transmission detected. James helped Zara to a chair and ran to the nearest computer terminal. His fingers flew over the controls. Someone's been watching us, he said grimly. That blinking light we saw. It was a spy device. Everything you just did, everything you said about Rigel, someone recorded it all. Zara's face went pale. Who? James's terminal beeped. The transmission went to. Oh no. What? Who has it? The Galactic Council themselves. James turned to her, his face serious. And according to this, we have company coming. 3 Council warships just changed course to intercept us. Zara stood up shakily. I have to leave. If they catch you helping me. No. James's voice was firm. Running is what they expect. It's what feeds their fear. You just showed me something incredible. You helped instead of hurt. Maybe, He looked at his terminal thoughtfully. Maybe it's time to show everyone else too. What do you mean? James smiled. That transmission. It went to the council, but I can track where else it's being routed. Every major news network in the galaxy is picking it up. They all just saw you save my ship. Save my life. They'll still be afraid, Zara warned. Maybe, but now they're also curious. James checked their course. We have 2 hours before those warships reach us. Just enough time for you to tell me, and everyone else watching, what really happened at Rigel. The whole story. Zara looked at the camera that had recorded everything, still blinking its red light. Millions of people across the galaxy were probably watching right now, waiting. She took a deep breath. It started with a single star, dying before its time. My people felt its pain from across the galaxy. As Zara began her story, neither she nor James noticed a small symbol appearing on the spy device's casing, a symbol that matched an ancient marking found in the ruins of Rigel. Someone had planned this whole thing, right from the start. And high above them, in the council's secret chambers, an old blue-skinned man watched the transmission with tears in his eyes. Finally, he whispered, the truth comes out. The Star Wanderer's view screen showed 3 galactic council warships approaching, their silver hulls gleaming against the darkness of space. Inside the cargo ship's bridge, Zara's voice trembled as she continued her story to the millions now watching across the galaxy. Rigel's sun was only the beginning, she said. We discovered it was part of a chain reaction, a cosmic disease spreading from star to star. James watched his radar screen nervously. 30 minutes until they reach us. The spy device's light blinked steadily, broadcasting everything. Zara placed her blue hand on the ship's control panel, and soft waves of energy rippled through the metal. My people, we're not just energy manipulators, she explained. We're healers, born from the same cosmic force that powers the stars themselves. When we found the dying suns, we knew we had to help. The ship's lights flickered as Zara's energy merged with its systems. The view screen changed, showing a holographic recreation of the Rigel system from 5 years ago. There were 5,000 of us, she continued, all gathered around Rigel's sun. Working together, we could have saved it, redirected the destructive energy, healed the cosmic wounds. Her voice cracked. But they didn't understand what we were doing. The hologram showed tiny ships, hundreds of them, surrounding the blue-skinned healers. They thought we were attacking the sun. They opened fire. Zara's eyes glowed with remembered pain. Our concentration broke. The sun's energy went wild. We couldn't control it anymore. The hologram displayed the devastating explosion that followed. But now, watching closely, viewers across the galaxy could see the blue-skinned beings trying desperately to contain the blast, sacrificing themselves to save as many planets as possible. Warning. The ship's computer announced. Unknown energy signature detected in cargo hold. James jumped up. What now? They rushed to the cargo hold, the spy device hovering behind them, still broadcasting. The medical containers were glowing with a familiar blue light. Impossible, Zara whispered. She approached one container, her hands shaking. These aren't medical supplies at all. She opened the nearest container. Inside, suspended in a preservation field, was a piece of crystal that pulsed with living energy. Star fragments, she breathed. From Rigel's sun. But how? Because I put them there, a new voice said. They turned to see a hologram appearing. The same blue-skinned council member who had been watching them. His aged face was lined with both sorrow and hope. Father, Zara gasped. Hello, my daughter. The hologram smiled sadly. I've been searching for you for so long. You're supposed to be dead. Everyone died at Rigel. Not everyone. Some of us saw what was coming. We knew we needed someone to survive, to tell the truth when the time was right. He looked at the spy device, and now, thanks to this brave human captain, that time has finally come. The warships were getting closer. James checked his instruments. 15 minutes. Zora's father nodded. The star fragments in these containers, they're proof. Living evidence of what really happened, of what we were trying to prevent. He turned to address the camera directly. To everyone watching across the galaxy, the disease that was killing Rigel's son didn't die with it. It's still spreading. Alarms blared throughout the ship. James rushed to check the sensors. Multiple ships appearing, not just the warships. The view screen filled with vessels of all sizes, cargo ships, passenger liners, private crafts, hundreds of them, forming a protective ring around the Star Wanderer. "What's happening?" Zora asked. A flood of messages poured in through the ship's communication system. Voices from across the galaxy. "We saw what you did in the engine room. You saved that ship. My star charts show the same patterns you described. Stars are dying. We won't let them silence the truth again." Zora's father smiled. "You see, people aren't all afraid. They just needed to see the truth." The warships slowed their approach, confronted by the wall of civilian ships protecting the Star Wanderer. But suddenly, the star fragments in the cargo hold began to pulse more rapidly. Their blue glow turned angry red. "No," Zora's father said, his hologram flickering with worry. "It's happening faster than we thought. The disease, it's reaching this sector." Zora touched one of the fragments, then jerked back as if burned. "He's right. I can feel it. The same corruption that killed Rigel's son. It's here." James looked out at the fleet of ships surrounding them, warships and civilian vessels alike, all about to witness either their redemption or their doom. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Days, maybe hours." Zora stood straighter, her blue skin beginning to shine with inner light. "But this time, we're not alone. This time, people know the truth." Her father nodded. "And this time, we have a human ally who isn't afraid of us." The star fragments pulsed again, casting red shadows through the cargo hold. Above them, the civilian ships held their protective formation, while the Council warships hovered uncertainly. James looked at Zora, then at the waiting ships, then at the broadcasting spy device still sharing everything with the galaxy. "Well," he said with a grim smile, "I always wanted my cargo runs to be more exciting." As if in response, every star fragment in the hold pulsed at once, and a wave of burning energy washed through space, the first sign of the coming storm that only the blueskins could fight. But this time, the galaxy would be watching. And this time, they would know who their true allies were. Red emergency lights pulsed through the Star Wanderer's corridors as James ran between the engine room and bridge, checking systems that were failing faster than he could fix them. The star fragments in the cargo hold were now burning so hot they were melting through their containment units. "All ships, maintain distance," he shouted into the comm system. The civilian fleet protecting them had grown to over 1,000 vessels, but they were now in as much danger from the fragments as from the Council warships. In the cargo hold, Zora and her father's hologram worked frantically to contain the growing energy crisis. "The disease spreads through stellar energy itself," her father explained, his image flickering as power fluctuated. "It corrupts the natural flow, like a virus corrupts living cells. That's why we can feel it. We're connected to that same energy." Zora's hands glowed as she tried to stabilize another fragment. "But why bring them here? Why risk spreading it?" "Because we needed proof that couldn't be denied. And," her father hesitated, "because these fragments contain something else. Something we hid there 5 years ago, when we knew we were about to fail." The largest fragment suddenly cracked, releasing a burst of energy that knocked Zora backward. James rushed to help her up. "I'm okay," she said, but her blue skin had paled to a lighter shade. "Father, what did you hide in the fragments?" Before he could answer, the Council warships opened communication channels, not just to the Star Wanderer, but to every ship watching and every broadcast station receiving the spy device's transmission. A stern-faced council member appeared on screens across the galaxy. "This is High Chancellor Marcus. We've analyzed the situation and have come to a decision." Everyone held their breath. "The blue skin race clearly possesses powers we don't fully understand," Marcus continued. "Powers that could be either immensely beneficial or catastrophically dangerous. We've seen evidence of both today. Through the ship's windows, they could see the warship's weapons powering up. Therefore," Marcus said, "we demand that all blue skins surrender to Council custody for evaluation." "Evaluation," James spat. "You mean experiments, testing, turning them into weapons. The alternative," Marcus's voice grew cold, "is immediate elimination of all blue skin individuals as threats to galactic security." Zara stepped forward, her voice carrying to every listener through the spy device. "And what about the stellar disease? It's spreading through this sector right now. Without us, billions will die when their suns begin to fail. We have our own scientists, who don't understand stellar energy like we do." She gestured to the fragments. "These aren't just pieces of a dead sun. They're—" Suddenly, every fragment in the cargo hold burst open at once. But instead of destructive energy, they released something else. Hundreds of tiny crystalline spheres, each containing swirling blue light. "Memory crystals," Zara's father said softly. "Our entire history, our knowledge, everything we know about stellar energy and healing. We hid them in the fragments, knowing someday they'd be needed." The spheres floated through the air, each one projecting images, blue-skinned healers throughout history, saving dying stars, healing cosmic wounds, protecting entire civilizations that never even knew they were in danger. "Enough," Marcus shouted. "This changes nothing. Surrender or—" He was cut off by new alarms blaring through every ship in the sector. Long-range sensors showed a massive energy disturbance approaching, a wave of stellar corruption that made the fragments look tiny in comparison. "It's here," Zara's father said grimly. "The disease has reached this sector's sun. You have a choice, Chancellor Marcus. Continue hunting us, or let us save everyone." The memory crystals pulsed in sync, their light forming a pattern that matched the corrupted energy approaching. Zara touched one, and understanding flooded her face. "The crystals," she whispered. "They're not just memories. They're a key, a way to magnify our healing powers across entire light years." She looked at her father. "You knew this was coming. You planned for it." "We had hope," he said simply. "Hope that when the time came, people would choose truth over fear." The corruption wave grew closer. They had minutes at most. "Chancellor," James said to the screen, "I've seen what Zara can do. She saved my ship, saved my life. Maybe it's time to stop fighting the only people who can save all of us." Marcus looked at his sensor readings, at the approaching wave of death, at the memory crystals showing centuries of blue-skinned healers protecting the galaxy in secret. At that moment, another hologram appeared, an elderly council member with familiar blue skin. "Hello, Marcus," the new figure said. "I believe it's time I returned from my self-imposed exile. As the head of the Scientific Council, I have something to say about all this." Zara gasped. "Grandmother." The older blue-skinned woman smiled sadly. "Did you think your father was the only one working to reveal the truth?" She turned to Marcus. "The choice is yours, Chancellor. But perhaps you'd like to know why I, your most trusted scientific advisor for 30 years, never told you what I really was." The corruption wave loomed closer, and with it the moment of truth that would decide not just the fate of the blueskins, but of every living being in the sector. And through it all, the spy device kept broadcasting, showing the galaxy exactly what fear and prejudice had hidden for so long. Time was running out, and somewhere in the vastness of space, more fragments of dying stars pulsed with the same corrupt energy, waiting to be either healed or allowed to spread their destruction across the cosmos. The Star Wanderer's hull groaned under the strain of the approaching corruption wave. Inside, the memory crystals filled the cargo hold with swirling patterns of light, each one containing centuries of blue-skin knowledge. Zara stood between her grandmother's hologram and her father's. 3 generations of healers united at last. Chancellor Marcus's face on the view screen had lost its stern certainty. "Lady Venna," he said to Zora's grandmother, 30 years you advised me. Why reveal yourself now?" "Because, old friend," Venna's hologram stepped forward, her aged blue skin shimmering with barely contained energy. "Sometimes the greatest deception is letting others deceive themselves. You saw what you expected to see. A trusted advisor with unusual insights into stellar phenomena. You never questioned why." The corruption wave's front edge reached the outer ships of the civilian fleet. Metal began to corrode as stellar radiation leaked through their shields. "We need to act now," James said, checking his failing instruments. "That wave hits the sector's sun. We lose everything." Zora touched one of the memory crystals, and its light spread through her body. The knowledge in these crystals, it's not just about healing stars, it's about healing minds, showing truth to those who refuse to see. Her grandmother nodded. "Why do you think I stayed hidden on the council? Someone needed to be ready, to understand both sides when this moment came." Suddenly, all the memory crystals pulsed in unison. A holographic map filled the cargo hold, showing not just their sector, but hundreds of others. Red spots marked dying stars, spreading like a disease across the galaxy. "By the void," Marcus whispered. "How long has this been happening?" "Since before Rigel," Zora's father said. "We tried to warn everyone then. Now," he gestured to the map, "now we're almost out of time." The spy device hovering nearby captured everything, broadcasting to countless worlds. In streets and homes across the galaxy, people watched as their own sectors appeared on the map, many marked with the same deadly red glow. A new alarm blared through the ship. The corruption wave had reached the Council warships. Their more powerful shields were failing. "Chancellor," Venna said quietly, "you've served the Council for 40 years. In all that time, what was your highest duty?" Marcus straightened. "To protect the people of this galaxy." "Then let us do the same." The memory crystals began to move, forming a complex geometric pattern in the air. Zara stood in its center, her blue skin glowing brighter. "The crystals can amplify our powers," she explained. "But we need the Council's help. Your ships, your networks, your transmission relays. We need it all to spread the healing energy far enough." "And if we refuse?" Marcus asked, but his voice lacked conviction. James stepped forward. "Then we all die. Not just here, but everywhere that infection spreads. Is your fear worth that price?" Before Marcus could answer, space itself seemed to tear open. The corruption wave hit the Star Wanderer with full force. Metal screamed. Shields failed. The ship's hull began to buckle. But Zora was ready. Energy flowed from her into the crystal pattern, creating a protective bubble around the ship. Inside the bubble, the corruption couldn't touch them. "Grandmother," she called out, strain showing in her voice, "I can't hold it alone." Venna's hologram flickered. "Marcus, give the order. Let me reveal myself to the Council. Let all hidden blueskins stop hiding. Together, we might have enough power." Marcus looked at his own ship's failing systems, at the map showing the spread of stellar death, at the billions watching this moment through the spy device's broadcast. "You could have left," he said suddenly. "All of you, found some distant sector and hidden. Why stay? Why keep trying to help people who hate you?" "Because," Zora said, still holding the energy barrier, "that's what healers do. We heal, no matter the cost. No matter if the patient fears the cure." Another section of the Star Wanderer's hull cracked. They had seconds left. Marcus closed his eyes. When he opened them, he was no longer just a chancellor enforcing laws. He was a protector of the galaxy, facing its greatest threat. "By emergency powers of the Galactic Council," he declared, his voice carrying to every world receiving the broadcast, "I hereby revoke the ban on blue-skin individuals. All Council resources are now at your disposal." He looked directly at Zora. Save us. Save us all. Vena's hologram smiled. She raised her hands, and across the council chambers light years away, her true blue-skinned form was revealed. Other council members gasped. But then more stood up, their own concealment falling away. 5 other blue skins had hidden among them, waiting for this moment. Throughout the galaxy, more blue skins emerged from hiding. Hospital workers, engineers, teachers, hundreds of them, thousands, each one feeling the call through the crystal network. The corruption wave pressed against Zara's barrier, almost breaking through. But she wasn't alone anymore. Energy flowed from every revealed blue skin, channeling through the Council's transmission networks, amplified by the memory crystal's pattern. A new light began to spread through space, not the angry red of corruption, but the healing blue of stars restored to their natural flow. But something was wrong. The crystal pattern was incomplete. One crucial position in its geometric form remained empty. "There's a piece missing," Zara called out, her strength failing. "The pattern needs one more." A new voice spoke from the spy device itself. "I know. I've been waiting for this moment too." The device transformed, its metal shell falling away to reveal one final memory crystal, and within it, one last hidden blue skin ready to join the fight that would decide the galaxy's fate. The final memory crystal floating where the spy device had been began to pulse with an intensity that outshone all the others. Within it, a figure took shape. A young blue-skinned girl, no more than 12 years old. "Hello, big sister," the crystal child said. "I've been watching over you." Zara's barrier against the corruption wave faltered. "Sarah, but you died at Rigel. I saw you. You saw what Father wanted everyone to see." The girl's form stepped out of the crystal, becoming solid. "He hid me in the crystal network because I was the only one young enough, pure enough, to maintain the connection between all our scattered people." The Star Wanderer's hull screamed as another plate tore away. Through the gaps, they could see the civilian fleet and council warships struggling against the corruption wave. "Sarah," Zara's father's hologram flickered urgently. "It's time. Take your place." The young girl nodded and moved to the empty spot in the crystal pattern. The moment she stepped into position, every crystal in the formation blazed with blinding light. The geometric pattern became a perfect sphere of energy, with Zara and Sarah at its heart. "Together," Sarah said, reaching for her sister's hand. As their fingers touched, consciousness expanded. Zara felt every blue skin across the galaxy, from council chambers to distant outposts. Their combined power flowed through the crystal network, amplified by the council's transmission relays. But the corruption wave fought back. Where healing energy touched it, it adapted, grew stronger. The red tide of stellar death pressed against their blue light of restoration. "It's learning," Zara's grandmother called out from the council chambers. "The disease. It's intelligent." James watched his ship's sensors in horror. "The corruption is forming patterns. It's not just destroying stars, it's using their energy to think." Through the crystal network, Zara and Sarah saw the truth. The stellar disease wasn't natural. Something, had created it. Ancient beings who had tried to harness the power of dying stars, only to create a conscious infection that consumed entire galaxies. "Look," Sarah pointed to new data flowing through the crystals. "Other galaxies. They're all gone. Consumed. Ours is the last one." Chancellor Marcus's voice came through all channels. "All council ships, divert full power to the transmission network. Whatever those crystals are doing, they need more energy." Across the galaxy, ships and stations responded. Power plants, engines, reactors, everything fed into the network. The blue-skinned healers became conduits for an unprecedented flow of energy. But it wasn't enough. The corruption wave had reached their sector's sun. Red tendrils of infection burrowed into the star's core. "We can't just fight it," Sarah said suddenly. "That's what the ancients tried, and they failed. We need to do what we were born to do." Zara understood. We need to heal it. Through their joined hands, a new kind of energy began to flow. Not fighting the corruption, but embracing it, understanding it. The crystal pattern shifted, becoming more organic, more alive. The disease, Zara broadcast to all watching. It's in pain. The ancients' experiments wounded space itself. The corruption is trying to heal, but it doesn't know how. Sarah squeezed her sister's hand. So let's teach it. Every blue skin across the galaxy felt the shift in approach. Their powers no longer pushed against the corruption, but flowed with it, guiding it, showing it a better way to heal. The red wave paused. Where blue light touched it now, new colors emerged. Purples, greens, colors humans had no names for. The corruption was transforming. Look at the sun, James called out. The infected star was changing. The corruption within it hadn't disappeared but had been transformed. New energy patterns emerged, beautiful and strange. It's not just healing, Zara's grandmother observed in wonder. It's evolving, becoming something new. Through the crystal network, they could see it happening everywhere. Every infected star, every corrupted system, all transforming into something that had never existed before. Sarah laughed with joy. It's dancing with us. The spy device's crystal merged with the others, completing a pattern 5 years in the making. Zara and Sarah stood at the center of a galaxy-wide network of healing. Their family finally reunited, their people finally free to help openly. Chancellor Marcus stood on his bridge, watching stars change color across the galaxy. I hereby call an emergency session of the Galactic Council, he declared to all watching. The Blueskins aren't just pardoned, they're to be honored. We need to create a new division, the Stellar Healers Corps. Cheers erupted from the civilian fleet. The Council warships' weapons powered down, replaced by healing energy channeled through their systems. It's beautiful, James said, watching space itself come alive with new colors. But what happens now? Everything's different. Zara smiled, still holding her sister's hand. Now we do what we were always meant to do. We heal. We teach. We help life flourish in ways no one ever imagined possible. And we do it together, Sarah added. No more hiding. No more fear. The last memory crystal pulsed once more, showing visions of a future where blue-skinned healers worked openly alongside all other species, exploring the new cosmic energies they'd helped create. The galaxy wasn't just saved, it was transforming into something greater. As the Star Wanderer's systems came back online, repaired by the new energies flowing through space, James set a course for the nearest council station. They had work to do, stories to tell, and a whole new universe to help flourish. And somewhere in the transformed stars, the ancient beings who had started it all stirred in their long sleep, sensing that finally, after eons of failure, someone had succeeded where they had failed. The galaxy wasn't just healed, it was reborn. The spy device's crystal, its work done, dissolved into pure energy, spreading through the ship like stardust. Its light formed 3 words before fading away. Just the beginning.